Facebook went online like that. Boom. Looks like they
Look at
Facebook.
you. Look at you, Facebook.
Yeah. Periscope. Getting some warnings on the rest of them, but like, you know what? I think we're good to go.
Yep. I
Let's make.
just got an indication that we
Yep.
are. Yeah.
So Lisa Miller is watching tonight. So we at least have
Oh,
somebody already
that's
clamoring
right.
in for. Let me hang on.
People just dying to get in to see the show. It's amazing.
Okay,
And
D.
yeah.
Let's 9:30. I'm gonna go on to you. All right.
All
You
right.
ready? Here we go.
Yeah. Hey, America! It is 9/11. At least for the next couple of hours here on the West Coast. Um, yeah. It's like one of the worst days in American history, as recent American history, and we're going to talk about it tonight. Um, we do a somber show from time to time, and this is definitely one of them. We're gonna try to yuck it up as much as we can because, as you all know, we are masters of really ill-timed yucks. And this is just sort of a bad day for a lot of people, but we're gonna chat about it. You have anything you want to talk to us about, especially about this? Do not tell an Autobot because they will blow you up every time.
Oh man. Yeah. I didn't know if I like should have blown you up at the end. I mean, we're doing a
We're
somber
talking
show.
about it was an awful day. There was blowing up in that day,
Yeah.
and
Right.
then we used that was a
How do you feel?
bayformer. That's not a real transformer. It's a bayformer.
Yeah.
So
Well, welcome to Very Dad Ideas. This is a sort of somber episode tonight. We're going to be talking about 9/11.
it's sort of hard to do a show on Tuesday nights when 9/11 falls on it, and not talk about 9/11.
Yeah, I mean, I called you up and was like, "Hey, what are we going to do?" And you're like, "We got to do 9/11." And you're absolutely right. I have a lot of stuff about 9/11 because I was
Yeah.
there and we all had our stories or whatever. I don't know. Does it deserve fireworks? It's sort of in our.
Can we just have a little fireworks anyway? I mean,
Yeah, I
like,
think there's fireworks.
yeah, we got a budget for it, right? I mean, like, we don't use that.
Right.
Can't have it for the next show, so we have to use it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Just give you guys a little background. How old were we in 2001?
Oh, so my wife just came home and told me a story that she had met a doctor who is working in her emergency room that is 26. And they probably
Wow.
don't really remember it all that often. And then they are a working medical professional. So that shows you just how old we really are.
That would have been like the Challenger shuttle to them. Like, I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, age-wise, sort of in the
I
same
kind of
ballpark.
remember the Challenger shuttle. That's what's interesting. Is
I
that,
absolutely do remember the Challenger shuttle. I was homesick that day.
yeah. So
And by sick.
before we go into our main segment about 9/11, we are going to do some dad advice, right? Steve?
Yeah, we're going to do some dad advice because what is a better way? What's a better way? What's a lighthearted way to go away from 9/11 for a second, to sort of march it on along, than with the death of a pet?
Yeah.
Yeah. Our house cat, our family cat, died yesterday.
Oh
And
man.
yeah, and it was it was really sad, but I felt like this need because it was a 6-year-old. I had this need to just sort of we had to do like the burial, and we need to do like a ceremony. I just wanted, because otherwise, not that the kid even cares that much about the cat or whatever. It's our cat. We've had it longer, cared for it longer.
Right.
But so we did. We had a funeral for a cat. And
Oh, so you just like wrapped him up and threw him in the ground and all stood around and said a
hucked
couple
him
of
right
words?
in the ground. I literally I sort of spiked him.
Uh-huh.
Should I not? I probably should not have. He's not a football. He was a dead cat.
How long have you had this cat in this?
I was 14. He was a 14-year-old cat.
Wow. So that is a
Yeah.
big family loss
Well,
right there.
It was a big family loss. And anyway, my point is that, like, had the kid come out there and just sort of be there, because I thought that was important. I'm not sure ultimately if it was or it wasn't or whatever, but I just feel like there's certain rituals and ceremonies, and I thought it was a good idea to have the kid out there. And me and Allie like said some nice things about the cat. But there is sort of a pallor hanging over that area of the law, and it's not just because it's illegal to bury your cat in the ground. which I'm sure
Yeah.
it's but you know, also at the same time, we just didn't feel like spending whatever amount of money that is to earn the cat. You know, because if that happens, I'm gonna want to roll him up and, you know, sort of be able to smoke him myself. I mean, just individual cat cigarettes. So I don't know. It was just sad and somber, and I thought, how best to take the sting out of 9/11 than the death of a cat?
Yeah.
And
Well, what's the takeaway? I mean, really, what is the takeaway?
I think the takeaway is that, like, I wanted him to get used to knowing that, like, you know, that's sort of part of the cycle. It's part of the circuit getting closed.
Right.
Being alive means that at some point you're going to be dead.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. We lost that cat, and, like, if we get another cat, that cat's, I mean, we might not get 14 years out of that cat. That cat might get hit by a car.
Right.
Like, there's, you know, it's just, there's shit like that happens.
So everyone cuddle your cat right now. And on
Give
that,
your cat a big squeeze.
and on that uplifting moment, let's go back to our main segment, which is talking about September 11th.
Yes, back
we are
to
both
the big funny, the big joke.
Yeah, well, right. So let's start with where you were, because everyone has their "where were you" moment, right?
Yeah.
So D,
I was in Independence, Missouri.
Uh-huh.
I was in Independence, Missouri. I was at the time. Me and a buddy of mine, good buddy, were driving around Missouri, and I was trying to see all of my aunts and uncles and cousins and stuff like that, and just
Right.
you know, I was on a break from. I was living in San Francisco, and I was on a break from there, and I was just trying to tool around and see all the people. Yeah, and we stayed the night over at a buddy's in Independence, Missouri, and he had a contractor coming the next morning to work on his house.
Yeah.
And because, you know, in 2001, you can have just a normal job in Independence, Missouri, and own a house. It's not like it is in the West Coast at all.
Yeah.
But he was like, he knocked on the door because we had all been drinking until a few hours before that. And he said, you know, you got to get up. And by the way, you might want to turn the TV on because the world's about to end, or the world's ending.
Yeah.
One of the two.
Yeah.
So we did, and we watched the TV, and it was just the worst sort of feeling. We sort of walked through the rest of that day. We went to Walmart because I had to go and buy a phone card because I had to call a bunch of people. And
Yeah.
there
But
was
it just sort of sat in your psyche.
It
Yeah.
sat in my psyche, and at the same time, everywhere we went, there was just this sort of rising pandemonium.
Yeah.
Like when I was in the Walmart just buying like $100 phone card because I had to make, I didn't have a cell phone at the time, and everybody there was running in and grabbing like two things of big 5-gallon red jerry cans for gas, and or they were, everyone was like in stockpile mode. We got out of the Walmart and there was like a gas station, like, I don't know, half a block sort of between a parking lot and the Walmart, and there were literally cars circling the gas station.
Yeah.
And it was just there was a
Sort of
sense
like that level of panic already had come in.
everybody had gone into survivor mode.
Yeah.
It didn't it didn't go away.
Yeah.
Like I think actually we wound up in like an Applebee's or a Chevy's or something like that.
Yeah.
In one of those sort of bars where all of the TVs, like, this may have been before like TVs were required in like bars to only play sports. Like it was either on ESPN or like something else. Like it couldn't be on the news.
Yeah.
But yeah, like everybody was on. Like everybody was just waiting to find out what it is that we were supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting is that.
What about you, my friend?
Well, my story is a little bit different in that I was actually living and working. So I was actually living in the north part of New Jersey. Palisades Park is where I was living, and I would take the bus that would go through the Lincoln Tunnel and then into. And so what happened was we were coming around and through the into the tunnel, not the Lincoln Tunnel. Was it the Lincoln Tunnel? Yeah, the one in the north one. Anyways, so just north of the Weehawken Ferry. Anyways, the bus basically stopped, and the announcement came over the loudspeaker: New York is closed. I remember thinking, like, how is New York closed?
Holy shit!
Right, and then everyone like looked out the window, kind of like collectively, and there was just sort of like this collective gasp because we were all looking at this huge plume of smoke that was coming out, and I missed it, but as I was exiting the bus, the second plane hit.
Oh my
Um,
God.
and I walked down to the shore of the river, and there was just hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe thousands. I don't know. I was kind of in a weird daze, just like looking at the skyscrapers, and I basically stood there on the shore watching them collapse.
Right.
And I was in this weird mix of people. Some people were crying. Some people were kind of like me, who were just kind of like really confused and in a daze. And then
Sort of taking it in.
yeah, and then there were people who were screaming like, those bastards, we're gonna get them and whatever. And it was a huge, just like emotional thing. Um, the honest thing, and it took me years to kind of reflect upon this, and I'll go back to our two up. It's been taking me years to reflect upon this. Is that I didn't really it didn't really process. I didn't understand what had happened or whatever, and I just saw the stream of video or whatever, and for like 2 days, I didn't really deal with it. And then
Yeah.
I was driving down along by the Weehawken Ferry, and I went past the parking lot, and I saw cars still in the park, because the Weehawken Ferry hadn't been running for days at that point, like 2 or 3 days it hadn't been running, and there were still cars in the parking lot of people who had gone to work that day or whatever, and they hadn't come back to get their car.
Right.
And that was the moment that it kind of clicked to me that what had happened. And I had this just sort of, and I would say it's probably one of the more transformative events of my life, because I had thoughts of like, wow, there goes there's my background.
Yeah. There's just one tower now.
There's just one tower.
Yeah.
So that was like the beginning of like me really pursuing animation seriously. I was kind of like, oh, I'll do it. But then when like someone's like, hey, Death, you're kind of like, oh fuck, I better start getting my act together.
Yeah.
And I'd say by January that next year, I moved to San Francisco, and I was in classes in the Academy of Art, and I mean, it was like September to January.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
I was like off my ass because of 9/11. So.
God, that's funny. It's funny too, because you mentioned that that you sort of have a reflection, and I remember I was taking everyone's temperature around me. We were all talking and stuff like that, and I had this sort of nutso like, I want to join the military. That's what I should be doing. I should join the military, and I should be of some kind of service. I should and I really thought about it. I was like, okay, D, all right, so you join the military. Right now you're pursuing voice acting and and acting and all of these sort of artsy kinds of things. What is it exactly that you could do for the military?
Yeah.
And I thought, and I was like, I should stay out of the military.
Yeah.
That's what I could do for them.
Yeah.
I can help them out by not making them train me, because I'm untrainable at this.
Isn't that
point. I mean,
hilarious? That you're like, oh, I really should contribute. I should join the military. I mean, that I've had that thought on regular times. I'm just like, no, I would be terrible in the military.
Terrible at it. I would put all of the other soldiers at risk. I would just be the shittiest soldier. I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't play a platoon for jokes, I don't think. You're not supposed to, I don't think.
I think that jokes would be very useful in a platoon. I don't know.
I just feel like no one's looking for jokes.
We neither of us know fucking shit about military.
Yeah. Oh my God, no. I mean, I would be good at marching, I guess, and running. I feel like those two things are strong with me.
Yeah.
But the shooting and not and sort of being uncomfortable, I don't think that would I wouldn't be able to do that very well.
Yeah.
I would I would fail really well.
Yeah.
Like, they just don't need people to like show up and die. They need people to show up and do stuff. You just gave me the con, didn't you?
There we go. Sorry.
Oh my God, that was awesome.
That was awesome. The Decepticons took over my computer.
Yeah, just for a second.
Because my Wacom tablet. So D, this is it was a somber and important first act for us to deal with, and we.
I know, right? I feel like the people who did, like the firemen who went in, the people who were on board United 93. Like those are real life heroes. I mean, like
Right.
they put themselves aside and they did what was best for the people.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the day and some events and some things to remember about it. We're going to come back on our second bit. We may or may not draw it tonight. I don't think I'm really in the mood to draw something funny, but we'll see. But let's take a quick break. We'll listen to some Jen, and we'll come back with more VDI talking about 9/11. All right.
Join us in a couple of minutes, won't you?
We'll be right back.
Yeah.
All right, VDI Transformer White. Great. Okay, and welcome back. We're doing, this is our second part for talking about September 11th. And my wife brings up, how are we going to talk to our kids about it? It's a great question. If somebody else has something they want to bring up.
As always, guys, if you have a question, feel free to leave it in the chat room. We it doesn't really show up in real time for you guys. It shows up in real time for us.
Right.
We'll get at it, and you'll hear what we have to say about it.
Right. So my wife is asking, how are we going to talk about it with the kids? So why don't you take that, Dee? What do you think?
Yeah. All right. I'll dive in on that. I think it's like a lot of things. You take the rapport you have with your child, and you make a decision. Are you going to tell them sort of a version of the truth that your kid can sort of get around, or are you going to like tell them that there are bad people out there? They wish certain people in America harm, and so they sort of act in a way that is that makes the biggest scene, that does the most damage. That the world's not really safe. I feel like anybody with half a brain would be like, I'd like to put that off for as long as I can, but forever.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the thing that's really weird about it is that, like, it affected my career. I told you in the last segment that it happened. I had to deal with death as a, 25, I guess, 24, something like that. I had to deal with that at that age, and then that affected my carpe diem attitude of like, well, fuck it, you better live your life. So, dealing with death on this kind of grand level, the thing that was weird is that was the beginnings of kind of a level of patriotism and nationalism in this country that in some ways is good, in other ways might be bad, and there was, there's a very reactive nature towards the Middle East now because of that, and it
Well,
really
yeah,
does
I mean
hurt quite a
that
bit.
was a bad day to be a Muslim in
Yeah,
America.
yeah,
There was a lot of bad shit that happened to people who had nothing to do
yeah,
with
yeah. My wife's
you know
bringing up like
those attacks.
Hussein wedding presents. We have really great friends of the family who are Muslim,
Mm.
who have had a hard time since that day.
Yeah,
They're straight up Americans, right? But like, hey, we're dealing with this thing. So I think that it
yeah. And
has
what are they going to?
cast a shadow.
Are they supposed to like run up and just like wave a flag so people know? Like they're they're here. They pay taxes, right?
Yeah,
You'd
they're here,
think we
but
would
then
just
also they were born here and they support American football teams and they, have hot dogs with the rest of the people and whatever. Um, and so it's an interesting thing that it's like that moment. I mean, yes, I think that there were things that were happening in this country that were kind of moving towards that, but 9/11 put it into stark visibility and made things happen that were scary and dangerous that caused forms of I guess racism to
it
be
sort of
pushed forward.
and it heightened racism. It also sort of galvanized. I think it was sort of the first time that I really felt like everybody in the nation, at least for a day, was like really listening.
Yeah,
I don't know. When I finally got back to San Francisco and I got back to my little spot in the Tenderloin, and I got out of the cab or I got off the train. I can't remember how I got back, because it took forever to try to, fly back.
yeah,
I just noticed that everybody on the street, even people who you normally wouldn't think would be paying attention, like, just like the crazy drugged out homeless and shit like that. Everybody was walking around like, holy shit.
Oh yeah, holy shit.
This is our fucking, this is all of our livelihood.
Right.
Like my ability to get like fucked up on the street and my ability to like, like get drunk and, just slack off. Cause 2001, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not 30 yet for a couple of years.
Yeah.
28,
Yeah.
like the whole like cool American like hangout thing was completely disrupted for everybody for at least 48 hours. I think.
So
Yeah,
this
I mean,
this was the map that I was gonna bring up here, which is I took this. I would live up here in just north of Hackensack here by the bridge,
Yeah.
and there's Washington Bridge in Fort Lee, Palisades Park. I would take the bus down here, which would come around this loop. I remember this loop. In fact, if you ever watched the opening of The Sopranos, he goes around this loop. You can see the New York skyline in the opening. Yeah, that one. And that's when I came around here, and this was all jammed, and it was
Yeah.
like the New York is closed. The Lincoln Tunnel is closed, and I don't think the Lincoln Tunnel had like ever been closed up to that point.
Right.
So I walked down here with hundreds of other people in the Weehawken Ferry area, and this down here right by the New York Stock Exchange. So I was watching it all happen, and the interesting thing also is later on I came back. There were people who were walking up the West Side Highway. There's these pictures. I don't know if you've seen pictures of people walking up the West Side Highway while these big clouds of smoke are rolling through, and I mean, definitely a surreal memory that I don't think I'm ever gonna like forget anytime soon.
Right. Right.
But that was a crazy day.
It was definitely like, I don't know, of the worst days that I've had, being alive for 44 years now. That's up there. That's in the top 5. Like I've had worse days.
Yeah.
That was definitely one of them. It was, and it's one of those ones that, like, especially on a day like today, if you're in a tavern, in a restaurant, you're, at a ball game, wherever you are, like everybody around you sort of
Tuned into it. Yeah.
it's just sort of there, just sort of hangs there.
Yeah. And so they're building new ones now, right? I mean, there's a new so New York skyline now. Let's see. I mean, there's the new thing that's here.
Yeah.
Right. And they're I mean, the comment is the actually funny thing is like they were sort of ugly buildings. They were definitely very sort of 70s and 80s in style and architecture
Yeah, I
or
mean
whatever.
they're just like two like just blocks,
Yeah.
like rectangular blocks.
But they were huge blocks and big symbols, and showed that we are definitely have an Achilles heel, right?
And Sam Raimi definitely had to redo third act of the original.
That's right.
Spider-Man
I mean, I remember the trailer came out.
The original
that
trailer had a
Spider-Man creating a web.
Doctor.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they had to change that out. Also, another interesting thing was if you watch Monsters Incorporated, there's a scene where they let the kid loose in Harryhausen's, which is the sushi restaurant, and then they put a dome over it. The original scene was supposed to happen is they basically nuked the entire area, that downtown area, to wipe out the kid. And when I saw Pete Docter's talk, is that they had to cut it right when the dome came down because it was just not in good taste to basically wipe out a city block for a Pixar film. So,
especially right around the time when that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So the last bit of information, D. What do you think where we are now with 9/11 as a country? Do you think we've moved for the better, or what has it done?
I thought about it all day long, and I was watching Facebook and I was watching what friends and stuff like that posted, and I think we all sort of treat it as people in our generation. I think we treat it as the death of our innocence. And I think that that's apt because it sort of, I mean, I definitely had like a feeling and a thought about my life and this country.
But collectively, we all had that. I mean, like when the Challenger, when Kennedy, or anything like that. I mean, there's these moments.
Yeah, but when the Challenger blew up, and you know, I wasn't around for Kennedy really.
Yeah.
When the Challenger happened, it didn't affect me the same way that this did. I mean, there were people who died in this thing, and died horrifically.
Yeah, and there was video of people falling.
Forget the towers for a second. The plane where those guys just like drove the plane into the ground.
Yeah. Also,
like, that's the one that sort of like really hits it home for me.
Also,
I
have friends who are in the D.C. area who was like, let's not forget that there were, you know, things that happened in D.C. and the
Pentagon. The United 93 was on course for the Pentagon, right? That was
or what it was supposedly. Yeah. I think in broad terms, it's made us more. I mean, a lot of the things I think are a problem with our culture today, which is like the media just showing more stuff to make us scared of things, or the politicians, rattling cages to make us more scared. This was a pivotal strategy in the current administration, the Cheney and the Bushes of the time.
It was definitely a good day for the 24-hour.
Yeah, but not just that for the current administration. Like, I mean, we went into Iraq and all that kind of stuff afterwards, and so I mean, it was not good in the long run for where we are today. But you know, it just wasn't good in a lot of ways. It's something that's worth remembering and thinking about.
It is. It's well, and I think that's sort of, I think ultimately the takeaway is that like things that are just that will make you feel about as small as you possibly can feel. And I think 9/11 was one of those days where it's just like, holy fuck, I'm just twisting in the goddamn wind out here. Like that thing that happened there may as well, or could just as easily happen. And you know, like I remember like in the weeks after that, everyone's looking for these definitive answers about like when the next terrorist attack's going to happen. And we're just like, so who are the people who can just like push that button and be like, oh yeah, there's going to be a terrorist attack?
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know.
We have this idea from watching TVs, and I have this idea from reading comic books that some sort of red light goes off. And they're like, it's a trouble alert.
No,
you know,
just things start blowing up and people start dying. That's what happened.
I think that's closer to it. Yeah.
So do you think it's in bad taste if you fought Tubby Vader for the end of our second act, or is that?
Give me 1 second to sort of let me just position this just right so that
let's go to 9/11 too as well Right.
Wait, there we go. I was just going to put them in between the towers for a second there. There you go, Tubby Vader. What do you think of? What do you think of some of that? Oh, you don't like that, do you?
Yeah, well, let's try to lighten the mood up a little bit as Darren fights Tubby Vader. We're going to take one more break. We're going to chat with Jen Remington. We're going to come back and we're going to finish up with. Oh, nice. Perfect. Oh, yeah, he's like, you got me
he's
there.
a little bit bummed about that.
You got me there. We're going to come right back. We got some updates. I have a recommendation. I don't know if Darren does, and we'll finish up the show.
Yeah.
Finish out the show strong. All right.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon. Let's come on back. Okay, well, welcome back to our final segment for tonight. We were talking about September 11th, letting it all hang out tonight. But this is our third act where we're going to be doing a couple of things, a couple of recommendations. But Dave, before we do, let's do our points of business before we. Where is our meta show?
And first, let me start by saying, you guys, you lucky people, have had the opportunity to listen to Jen Remington over there at heydog.net. That's
.com.
HEYDOGG.com. Yeah,
that's right.
I said .net, but I'm .net.
You are .net.
.com money. I'm .net money. Yeah.
So, Very Dad Ideas was produced with a variety of Adobe products using OBS Studio to stream. We use Restream.io to hit our networks, Voiceman and Banana to talk using audio, and then Discord is how we chat. You can follow us at Very Dad Ideas. We're on Facebook Live, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitter, and then of course Twitch. And Darren, I just set up our Twitch today, a year at this, and so now we're going to be putting archives of our Twitch. So if you're on Twitch, you can follow us and see our stuff. The archive itself is at Very Dad Ideas. You can go to verydadideas.com. You can also go to our YouTube channel or verydadideas.buzzsprout.com, and that also pushes to iTunes and various other places that you could subscribe to the podcast, which we get.
Yeah, was it SoundCloud or?
I don't know if we're on SoundCloud, but I'll double check on that. And so you can find most of our information at verydadideas.com. Everything is up there except for last week's episode. I haven't gotten that up there yet.
Yeah, last week's episode we got hosed
by Facebook. Yeah. This one, no, we have new functioning pipes that just shove the shit right into Facebook. So there you go. So visit that guy at daringjennings.net. I'm at nywarburton.com, and then the very lovely Jen Remington is at heydog.com. Okay, cool. So part of our show now where we do recommendations. So D, do you got anything that you want to recommend tonight?
I do. So you have a computer, right? Everyone, I mean, you and I, we both.
I'm on a computer right now. We're streaming through a computer right now.
And you want to upgrade it.
Sure, of course.
Right. Now, you can spend a lot of time reading magazines and blah, blah, blah to find out what SSD drive, what RAM is going to work for you.
But instead, you asked Darren.
But instead, you asked me, and I tell you, you go to Crucial.com. Crucial.com. You download their scanner, and they'll tell you what you can.
Crucial.com.
Yeah, they sell their own stuff. They do.
Yeah,
but they've made it so darn easy
CRU?
to upgrade your rig. CRUCIAL. Yeah.
Interesting.
You buy a memory, you buy an SSD. You know, you click that I agree to the terms and conditions, and you can have them scan your rig, and easy as pie. You've
Right.
got an SSD
So
drive.
if like
you've got
so
fatter
if like
RAM.
Crystal Maiden isn't like killing enough creeps fast enough,
Well, look at you busting out just fat Dota references, my friend. Well played. Let's say borrowed from is just ripping and just tearing your screen, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
I gotta fatten my drives. I gotta buy
Upgrade
some.
my device. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this looks like the kind of nerd site that is just worth going on and like seeing if you really should get more memory.
Yeah, and just like everybody, when you click on there, like, we'd love your feedback. Don't ever give anybody.
But the funny thing is that like I'm gonna take this test and it's gonna be like, you really should have more memory, and I'm gonna be like, oh, of course I should have more memory, right? I mean, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's bad. Like, don't go on there because you have extra money and you're like, I don't know what to do with it. If your rig is just slowed down and you absolutely have to, that's when you have to.
Right. How old is your rig? I mean, but you have an upgradable rig, right? I mean,
I've upgraded this pretty. I mean, I'd love to put
Alienware
fatter SSD drive in there. Yeah, it's a late 2014 model. I didn't buy it until 2015.
Oh, really?
So only.
But I mean, you've been playing Dota forever. Like, what do you?
I've been playing Dota since it was a map on the Frozen Throne expansion on
Frog.
On the original
Ice
Warcraft 3, that Ice Frog.
Yeah, I did. So that, I mean,
Hey.
so you've been doing it for a while. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But I'm not making any money at it. There are people who drink way too much Balls Guarana.
Ooh,
Yeah.
there you go. Good. This is a great recommendation, D. I love it. Love it. I mean,
I don't think Balls Guarana scans anymore. I don't think that beverage is made anymore. So I'm just going to go back to Red Bull. I just don't drink enough Red Bull.
Right. Right. Or what's a Rockstar?
Rockstar, sure. Rockstar. It's like an 18-ounce energy drink instead of coffee. What do you got? What's your recommendation?
My recommendation is equally as techy and nerdy. There's this guy who his name is, let's see, what's his name? Mad British Robot Enthusiast, James Burton.
Betamax T-shirt on. That's so awesome.
So this guy is the man who brought you Lego skateboard, a homemade Iron Man suit, is now creating something called Open Dog. So you know how those scary dog robot videos that you see, you know, that come out and they kick the dog and they, right?
Yeah.
So he is through his YouTube has an open source robot that you can do all the parts and the kits, and you can put it all together, assemble it yourself. He teaches you how. The guy has a funny personality and whatnot, and you know, he, like I said, he builds things like, let's click to this. Here is his Iron Man suit that he built, and he shows you how to build it. So the guy is like legit robot tinkerer, nerdy guy. But I thought this one was fantastic. What a great idea to have one of those dogs that everyone is terrified of and post.
Well, and then finally you can kick.
You can kick it yourself. So you know,
you can,
right? Isn't that the whole point of these things? You can like kick it off balance, and then
finally
it flies
abuse
back.
a robot dog way that you see fit.
Right. So if
your own home.
His name is James Bruton, Bruton, but I find this because I subscribe to Make Magazine, or read Make Magazine's website, which is a great, you know, robots, Arduino, whatever community, a maker community stuff, and they just get nerdy, fun things where, you know, they're building robots or whatever.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
like, I'm sure it's like 1,300 like easy steps, right?
Each out of the three.
Yeah, I mean, like he's showing the whole thing using like 3D CAD and like, you know, but the guy's really hilarious. He's really funny, and the fact that there's a whole movement to make open source as this, and then a project which is like so utterly complex, which is, you know, the high level of like, I'm making an AI robot dog walking around, and here, why don't you do it all at home? So.
I feel like if you're interested in building a robot dog, you probably know how to build a robot.
Yeah.
Like, don't you think? I mean, like, the people who are like, I'm desperate for a robot animal of some kind.
Right.
I think it's a robot dog.
Right.
But I don't know how to build it.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't want to spend thousands on somebody else making the dog. What if they fuck it up?
Yeah. So there you go.
That's awesome, my friend.
A future of building your own dogs and kicking them around and whatever. So
so much violence against robot dogs.
So should we should have any like last minute takeaways for tonight's show about 9/11? I mean, what have we learned this week? Maybe we don't always need to be funny is the thing that
because we very rarely are. I think for me, I think the takeaway is that there's going to remain wrong. There are things in your life that the wound's not really going to heal.
Right.
It's just going to sit there. And not to be morbid or anything about it, but to respect that shit, because they're real powerful forces at work in this world, and some of them are things that you can't predict. I mean, right? There's I think in 17 years of talking about this or listening to radio broadcasts, I've heard all kinds of stories about how somebody was supposed to do something. They were supposed to be there. They were supposed to, or somebody almost wasn't there and they wound up being there, and that wound up being their last day.
Yeah.
You know, like I think
or someone who missed the train and they would they would have died or whatever. Yeah, exactly. I mean, or
the people or their relatives are telling the story how they made it. You know, they made it to their job in the towers, and then that was it.
Right.
And I think the thing is that as hokey as this sounds, I think that should really relay the sweetness and the rarity and the finite amount of time that we have on this planet to do the things that we want to do. And we're already breathing the rarefied air of living in the United States. There's plenty of shitty places, even as bad as it is now.
Yeah.
You know, take that sentence and just blow it up however it is. Like, even as weird and funky as it is now, this is still the place to be. Firmly believe that.
Yeah. Well, Dee, I don't know if I can top or add to any of that, so why don't we call it there, and we'll say that this is our episode 34, September 11th. We will be back here again next week, Tuesday night at 9:30. Please subscribe to the podcast, like us. We're going to no live draw this week, but you can follow us on Instagram and various other places. And if you'd like to hear us talk about a topic or whatever, please post on Facebook what you're interested on doing, or on any of our channels, and we'll incorporate it into the show.
Sort of the next bit we're trying to incorporate into the show is that before we go live, we're going to sort of send out a blast beforehand.
Yeah, to see if we can get some information in. So for more marketing strategies that we may or may not ever do, and for more content, please tune in next week, and we will see you. We'll see you then. Thanks
Tuesday, 9:30. We'll see you.
Take care.